The first of 10 regrets I had when I look back at my business start was believing in probably one of the biggest lies in finances, and that's it takes money to make money. It's such a die-hard common phrase, and I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off when I say that it's a lie, but I've had many failed businesses, some that I spent money on, some that I just spent time on, some a mix of both, and the one that's been the most profitable for me to date is the one that I've just spent time on. So maybe instead of saying it takes money to make money, we add but you can make up for in resourcefulness what you lack in other areas. I'm Carolyn and I'm a six-figure laid-back entrepreneur, and here we talk personal finance and entrepreneurship. The second thing I wish I knew is that comparison isn't necessarily a bad thing. We are taught that we shouldn't compare ourselves to others, that it's not good for your mental health. But what if instead we just change what comparison did to us? What if instead of making us feel like someone had something we didn't, someone has an unfair advantage we don't, or that someone's doing so much better than we are? What if we just saw it as a motivator to show us if they can do it, then so can we. And maybe if they had an unfair advantage, someone is probably looking at you thinking that you have an unfair advantage. Say if someone had funds, maybe you have social networking skills. Or what if that person was your friend? What if that person was someone that was in your corner, cheering you on, showing you exactly how to achieve what they achieved, making connections for you? What if the only thing stopping you from achieving your goals is jealousy? This mentality has helped me so much in so many areas. And specifically, I have one example for you. I had been working on my main YouTube channel for years. And then this new girl came up and she achieved and surpassed what I had been doing in several years in 1 year. And I definitely felt that jealousy. I definitely felt like, well, she's only had this success because she's featuring this, or she's doing this, or because of this part of her appearance. And then I started to think, she's obviously doing much better than me. And if I dismiss it as whatever reason I just gave, then I will never learn what it actually took and if it's something that I can repeat. Instead of just being angry and feeling like it was unfair, I just tried to learn from her. And I reached out and I asked her what was she doing differently? What did she attribute to her success? And she ended up helping me a lot and really improving my videos, and eventually became a pretty good friend. The third regret is that I didn't invest in my business sooner. Okay, so it may not necessarily always take money to make money, but I have seen people leverage money and go much further in a similar situation that I had been when I chose a cheaper route. One example is when we first got our long-term rental property, which I eventually sold into 3 short-term rental properties. My only experience in property management was all the free information I had been listening to and watching online. So I figured if I could save myself the 20-30% in property management fees, then I could just pocket that myself. And I was so wrong. When I started doing the short-term rentals, and sure, I wasn't paying a property manager, I was just doing it myself, but I was paying for cleaners and I was paying for cleaning supplies and sheets and linens and towels, which you'd be surprised how often you actually have to replace them, how much guests can damage those. Anytime anything broke, I would pay for a handyman. The first condo was crushing it on Airbnb. It was booked out all the time. Eventually, when we got the second and the third one, it just got harder and harder to keep up with issues guests were having because these condos were in old buildings, replacing broken or lost or damaged items. And eventually it just got more and more stressful. I tried putting on a co-host, so started paying them a percentage. And eventually I was barely breaking even. There was 1 year where those 3 condos on short-term rental made $3,000. So finally, I just gave it up, just so burnt out, to a property management company. And they ended up making way more on those properties than I could on my own. Not only did they already have cleaning staff and handymen and cleaning supplies and linens, towels, even decor items to replace if anything's damaged or stolen. They were just more efficient. They already had all these automations in place and they already knew how to put the listing on many platforms, not just Airbnb. And then another instance was On my other YouTube channel, I had basically just tried to do it on my own for years. I really thought it was a matter of luck. I didn't really think of it as a matter of strategy, but eventually I started listening to free podcasts and YouTube videos, interviews with other YouTubers, people talking about building businesses around YouTube. I started to get to know the different strategists on YouTube, and there was one specific person, Derral Eves, that some of the largest YouTubers kept mentioning as behind the scenes. And I started looking up prices of all these consults and strategists, and he was the most expensive one. So I just kind of put that on the back burner. And eventually I paid for consults and even a course from one of the cheaper YouTube strategists. My channel just visually became more cohesive, and primal branding elements started being a part of it too. But I didn't really see much of a change in the performance of my channel, and definitely not it as a business. Until it was a last-ditch effort that I finally took the plunge and took that course from Derral Eves, which I had been putting off because it was the most expensive. Immediately, right out the gate of the 2 months course, my videos started getting 4 times average views than they were getting before. And to this day, 4 years after taking that course, I'm still involved in the Discord and the community, listening to some of the student exclusive interviews and live streams, and I still learn so much, and I'm still working on implementing more and more on the business side of things. And for a channel that had been plateaued for 3 years and had pretty much gone nowhere for a total of 5 years, after taking that course, my channel and the business around it has increased in revenue 30% every year since, in 3 consecutive years in a row. And this 4th year will be coming up, and already, even this early, it's already looking like a similar trajectory, but I'll give you an update in a year's time. My 4th regret was pushing myself too hard. Sure, I hear this message all the time about burnout and how you need to have a work-life balance and make sure you take care of yourself and your friends and family, still nurture those relationships. But it wasn't until I actually experienced the negative side of not doing that lesson really became a principle for me. So I was working my office job full time. I was trying to do property management, and I was working on my YouTube channel, and I was so obsessed with making these things work independently, sustainably, consistently, that I really neglected myself. So forget about working out, didn't really keep up with my friends and family. And I had a couple of big wake-up calls. One was that one of my closest friends in town, I noticed through social media that she had gone through a divorce. So that was a big wake-up call, that I had seriously neglected my friends. Physical wake-up call was I had developed insomnia for 6 years. So not onset insomnia, which is when you can't fall asleep. I had maintenance insomnia, which is when you wake up throughout the night. And I was waking up consistently around 2 to 4 a.m. and I could not fall back asleep. But I was yo-yoing through a bunch of different solutions. And I really wanted to avoid sleeping pills. I did go to a sleep doctor, and they had me change up a whole bunch of routine stuff, like get 10,000 steps, get sunlight early in the day. But it was still like a to-do list, and then I became obsessed with that. And it wasn't until Sleep Science Academy that it was all just psychological. By the way, none of these things are sponsored or affiliate links, nothing. I'm sharing all this information because it's helpful. It wasn't until I started just prioritizing rest outside of work, playtime throughout the day, whether that's puzzles or reading a book. Sarah Maas has gotten me lost into a world right now in the Throne of Glass series, let me tell you. Just doing things outside of work to take care of yourself socially, mentally, physically. And now I do not have insomnia anymore. I have an off night every now and then, but don't most people? The 5th thing that I wish I knew was to not doubt yourself, or at the very least, don't act out of doubt. You know, fake it till you make it. And it's weird because on my other channel, I talk so much about if you think you can do something, you're right. If you think you can't do something, you're right. Because whatever you set your mind to, you're gonna find a way to make the failure or the success happen, whichever one you really believe is in your future. I mean, if you are looking for a car that you wanna buy, the next purchase, all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere. If you think that you're going to be successful in your business venture, all of a sudden you start noticing and finding mentors, people who've experienced it before, or people who have experienced something adjacent that you can talk to and ask questions for. You start seeing books and videos that you can learn about. But if you think it just takes money to make money and I don't have it, so I'm not even gonna try, then you're never gonna notice what is gonna take you to making that goal happen. A specific business example for this is I really thought that sponsorships just kind of came to you. You just gotta sit back and wait for them. And I also didn't think that any businesses would want to sponsor my videos. I didn't know if I was getting enough views, or I didn't know if I could sell. I just didn't feel qualified, so I just didn't reach out to anybody. But then just after talking to other YouTubers, realizing how many people actually go out and get them themselves. And it wasn't because I thought I was ready, it was more I was just desperate. I was going on a month-long cross-country trip, recording 12 videos. It was going to be expensive to be traveling and producing on the road that long. So if I wanted to do that, I figured I really needed to get more funds down. So just based off of things that I was already showing and using in videos, I had a bunch of emails either from press events or from a free product sent already, or if I didn't, I would just message companies on Instagram. And I emailed 11 brands asking if they wanted to sponsor 3 months worth of videos, and 8 of them said yes. So that was in 2023, and that was the year that my income doubled by just doing that one thing. But if I had continued to think that I wasn't qualified to have sponsors, I wouldn't have sent those emails. I wouldn't have doubled my income that year. Another thing I wish I had known sooner was the importance of budgeting. By not doing this led to a pretty bad mistake that I did just last year. Because I wasn't prepared to see what was my money coming in and what was money coming out. Q1 historically on my other channel has just been lower income because not only is AdSense down, because my videos are usually from the winter in office or just talking head in the driveway. And on that channel, usually stuff when I'm out riding just perform better. So not only that, but also sponsors usually want to wait until the spring to start doing integrations. And I hadn't figured out yet how important it is to just have sponsors pay a portion on sign up, not after deliverables are made. So for instance, when I went on that cross-country series, those 8 brands that agreed to be sponsors agreed to start paying after the videos released. So that could have been months after I'd already been home and after I'd already been on the road. And that year, I almost ran out of money. I just got lucky. One of the brands paid early and I was like this close to just like being in a really bad place. But then the year after that, I had a similar thing happened in Q1 and I had to turn off my salary so I could just pay my editors and admin and bookkeeper, and just racked up credit card debt for a couple of months. When I had an office job, this was a lot easier to track because income and expenses were usually very consistent. But now with YouTube, income can range between 10x from one month to the other, and my expenses too, depending on if that's month or 2 is a heavy production month or not. This year, I've just made sure now all sponsors paying something on sign up and just being more conservative in Q1. So I'll let you know how that goes. My 7th regret was trying to be cheap with people. If you're going to be cheap with anything, don't be cheap with people, because good hires are hard to come by and you're going to need them. So here's where I made that mistake in my business. I hired a web designer, and this was actually when I was still working my office job, but I had a pretty tight budget. So I think I probably gave her the number first, and I said, can you design a website for this amount? And it was over Zoom, and I could tell she was like thinking about it for a second. And I offered like, well, maybe I can do some of the work too to offset on the costs. She agreed to do it, but I found that later when I came back around for more work, she wasn't responsive anymore. I don't know, it could have been for my price, it could have been something else. Then I started remembering how when I was a freelancer, and if someone wanted to negotiate and haggle on like a logo design or some other graphic design project, then I just wouldn't want to work with them again. I might take that job in the moment, but if they reached out again, I was not quick to respond. That's something looking back that I regret, whether or not it was because of my price, but either way, it's made me make sure to treat staff well. So even though my editors are contractors and I'm not their only client, I give them a bonus every Christmas. We went on a road trip together, filming a few videos, and I just made sure to keep checking in with them, make sure they were comfortable, make sure they were eating everything they wanted to, that they were comfortable with what we were doing, just making sure they're satisfied and wanting to do that again, because if they don't, then I am out of luck. Another thing I wish I knew sooner is that if it's negative for your business, not even just dollar amount, but even just you mentally, then just cut it out. One example is when I had what I call the editor from hell. Whatever the reason, everyone has a reason for poor behavior, but if they're letting it out, then it's just an excuse. So I was making excuses for him, like, oh, he's not meeting deadlines or listening to what I asked for and having a really bad attitude, literally screaming in a meeting because he was laid off from his dream job and now he's doing this for me. Or I'm new to leadership. Maybe I don't know how to manage properly or communicate well. Whatever the reason, this is your business. If it's not set up in a way that you like it, then you can change it. You don't have to keep that around, especially if they're not making up for in talent and creativity what they lack in attitude. When I let that guy go, I ended up getting 2 more editors that I might not have found had I not let go of the first one. And they are amazing. I've gotten so lucky. Everything I throw at them, they just crush it. Every new thing they get, they've become more producer editors now. I may have never found them had I not let go of the first one. Another regret was that for too long thinking that success in business was because of luck and not finding a mentor. But what I mean by finding a mentor, it doesn't necessarily need to be a person that you call and email and say, can you mentor me? It can just be someone that you listen to on YouTube or in podcasts or books that you read. Learning from someone else who's done it before and has done it successfully can help you so much and save you so many mistakes. Like when I failed an Etsy shop, when I failed at freelancing, when I failed at short-term rental management, all those things, I look back now, I realize there are a lot of resources on how to do that successfully. If I had just dug into that, I bet I would have been in a very different place. And the perfect example being with my main channel that struggled for so many years until I finally just spent the time and money to learn from someone who does it many, many times on many channels. The last regret is that not realizing how being cheap can affect you negatively in so many areas. And I don't just mean kind of what we were talking about before with people you hire or consults or staff or anything like that. So when I was a product designer for home and holiday decor versus when I was a product designer for holiday gift wrap, stationery, cards. Gift wrap, stationery, cards, those things are cheap. You can buy wrapping paper for like $1. So the products we were designing were cheap. The salary in that art department was pretty low for the market. And raises were maybe you got it, maybe you didn't, but if you did, it was inflation at best. And when I started designing more expensive products, home and holiday decor items made of like wood and marble that could cost tens of $20s or in the hundreds as well. That art department, the salary was actually on the upper end of the market and raises were pretty consistent and it was usually much better than just inflation. And then on YouTube, of course, just selling like products, like my commission for selling a $5 product is so much harder to make a good profit out of when the product is $200. So let's say you're selling something and you want to make $10,000 and you're selling it for $10, you're going to need to sell it to 1,000 people. But let's say you're selling it for $1,000, you only need to sell it to 10 people. Like that's way easier. And if you start a channel like I did, where you're offering nothing but the videos, then my main income for a long time was AdSense. Sponsorship is now a close first. Channels that I know that start and either had a business already in place or started even just selling a product, whether it was one expensive product or an online store, or they had consults. And I've even seen realtors have success on YouTube, just directing clients to themselves. Those people crush it in their business. I know one YouTuber that sells, it's like about $200 or $300 of an item that is in every single one of his videos. And he makes more by selling that one thing than he does in AdSense for all of his videos every year. And he barely even shouts out the product in his videos. I think he maybe does it once a month, once every other month. And I know of another channel who has some educational videos and some more story-based videos, all on a certain niche. And they also have an online course, kind of putting all their educational stuff in a more organized, heftier platform. And their online course, even though they only get maybe tens of thousands of views, their online course made 100,000 in the first year of launching, almost passively. So the road to becoming your own boss isn't always easy, but the great thing about YouTube is that you can learn from others so that you can make your path a lot smoother. So I'll share with you some ugly truths that not a lot of people are talking about when it comes to starting your own business right over here.